Welcome to This Explainer, where we're tackling a really critical diagnostic tool designed specifically for high-performing leaders who are frankly secretly running on empty. Our source material highlights a story about a leader named Jason. From the outside looking in, his company was growing, his clients were thrilled, and everything just looked like pure success. But on the inside, well, he hadn't taken a single weekend off in 11 months. He was waking up at 3 a.m. with a tight chest, his patience was completely gone, and he kept telling himself it was just a busy season. It actually took a client flat out asking him, "Hey, are you okay?" for Jason to realize he really wasn't. So today, we're going to dive into the hard data behind why this happens. It's time we stop treating exhaustion as some sort of character flaw and start treating it exactly like what it is, a structural breakdown.
All right, here is our roadmap for today's clinical consultation. We'll be covering the epidemic itself, the 10 core symptoms, the overwhelm engine, the true cost to your business, a quick self-evaluation, and finally, structural solutions. Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the hidden leadership epidemic, which is really just a growing trend masking as ambition.
Get this. Right now, a staggering 56% of leaders report feeling burned out. That's up from 52% the year before. And remember, that number only represents the leaders who are actually still standing, right? It doesn't count the ones who have already quietly stepped back. If you are feeling this weight, this data proves you are absolutely not weak. You are just part of a widespread statistical epidemic.
Ariana Huffington really hits the nail on the head here. We have got to stop seeing burnout as a badge of honor. As a high performer, you're literally trained to push through discomfort. But that very trait, the exact same one that made you so successful, eventually becomes the mechanism of your collapse when you apply it without boundaries. It simply means your operating conditions have completely outpaced your structural support.
Moving on to part 2, let's look at the 10 burnout symptoms to give you a data-driven diagnostic.
First up, we have the physical symptoms. Now, your body is brilliant. It sends signals way before your mind even accepts what's going on. We aren't just talking about being a little tired here. We're talking about a deep fatigue that sleep simply cannot fix. The research gives this great example of a fractional CFO named Monica. She miraculously slept 9 hours a night on a beach vacation, which is the absolute dream, right? Only to wake up feeling like she hadn't slept a single minute. Her tank was just entirely empty. You might also see frequent illness because your immune system gets suppressed. Sleep disruption hits, like those lovely 3 a.m. cortisol spikes. And persistent jaws tension, that tension is literally operational intelligence your body is offering up, telling you that your nervous system has way exceeded its capacity.
Next, the emotional and psychological symptoms set in. This is where a lot of leaders start to feel shame. But again, remember, this is just data. You start experiencing severe decision fatigue. Think back to Jason from our intro. He used to effortlessly make 12 big decisions before 10 a.m. But under burnout, an email that should take 3 minutes started taking him 40 minutes to write. You also start seeing emotional detachment, a creeping cynicism, irritability, and a total loss of enthusiasm for the work you used to love. Researcher Brené Brown reminds us perfectly here, exhaustion and cynicism are not character flaws. They are hard data points showing your system has been asked for way too much for way too long without any restoration. Finally, we hit the behavioral symptoms. And this is where the business actually starts feeling the true cost. Leaders start isolating themselves. They cancel coffee meetings. You see declining performance and straight-up avoidance. The data highlights a founder named Len, who simply stopped opening his own inbox. Not because he didn't care about his company, but because he literally did not have the capacity for one more urgent thing. When this happens, the highest output person in the entire room suddenly turns into the bottleneck for the whole organization. Let's move to part 3. We're going inside the overwhelm engine to see exactly why relying on willpower isn't enough.
This vicious cycle right here is what experts call the overwhelm engine. It always starts with chaos, which forces you into a state of constant reactivity. Living in that reactivity breeds deep bone-level fatigue. Because you're so fatigued, your capacity drops, and that leads to inconsistency. That inconsistency inevitably costs your business opportunities, which then triggers immense guilt. And what exactly does a high performer do when they feel guilty? Well, they push even harder, completely bypassing any structural support, which just generates even more chaos. And the engine loops all over again. Trust me, you cannot outwork this cycle.
Which brings us to part 4, the true cost of exhaustion. Because this is so much more than just a feeling.
Let's talk real numbers. We are looking at an estimated $20,683 lost per C-suite leader annually. That is a massive cost absorbed silently into revenue shortfalls, missed opportunities, and employee turnover. Add that to the estimated $125 billion spent every single year in U.S. healthcare expenses linked directly to burnout, and you quickly realize how incredibly expensive it is to just ignore this problem. Simon Sinek powerfully connects that financial loss right back to the human cost. The compounding cost in lost relationships and lost years is just staggering. An exhausted leader loses the very inspiration required to sustain their endurance. Simply put, when you are running on fumes, your business is running on fumes.
Okay, part 5. It's time for a quick leadership self-evaluation. Let's see exactly where you land.
I want you to ask yourself these physical questions honestly right now. Do you wake up tired more often than you wake up rested? Have you had more than 2 unexplained illnesses in the last 90 days? Are you relying on coffee and sheer willpower to override bone-level depletion?
Now reflect on your emotional state for a second. Are choices that used to be totally obvious starting to feel heavy? Are you making decisions much slower than you did a year ago? Has the work that used to really light you up started to feel like a heavy, draining obligation? Finally, consider your actual behavior. Have you stopped reaching out to colleagues? Are your big strategic projects sitting there totally untouched while daily operational fires consume your entire week? Are you physically present at the office but mentally completely disengaged? Here's the tough truth. If you nodded along to 3 or more of those questions, the data suggests you aren't just on the edge, you are already inside burnout. And the single most dangerous operational risk you can take right now is telling yourself you'll just deal with it after next quarter. So what do we do? That brings us to part 6. Systems over temporary fixes. This is the structural cure. Look, a vacation or doing some simple mindset work are great, but they are just temporary fixes. They reset your nervous system for a little bit, sure, but they don't change the flawed operating conditions waiting for you when you get back. A true, permanent solution requires structural clarity and solid operating rhythms that permanently alter the environment that caused your burnout in the first place. To actually break that cycle of the overwhelm engine, you have to implement these 3 immediate operational shifts. First, clarify your priorities so you can remove yourself as the bottleneck. Second, build out weekly operating rhythms that make your business predictable. And third, install a real leadership framework to replace all that reactive firefighting. Doing this ensures that when you do step away, the business doesn't just collapse without you. I'm going to leave you with this final, really provocative thought from Sarah, a service-based founder from our research who successfully escaped the overwhelm engine. She said, "I thought I needed a vacation. What I actually needed was a system. The vacation bought me 2 weeks. The system bought me my career." So I have to ask you, are you just trying to buy yourself 2 weeks of rest, or are you ready to finally install the systems to buy back your career? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to take these structural insights directly back to your own leadership team today.